Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adult Bible Study. This is a part of the Bluff Park United Methodist Adult Bible Study time, and my name is Wayne Williams, and as always, I am privileged to be able to spend this time with you. I hope it can be a meaningful and helpful time for you as we study together. Right now, we're looking at a unit of lessons where we've been thinking about heroes and non-heroes in the Bible. This is the third lesson in that series. The first lesson, we looked at Rahab the harlot, and we saw how, in her situation, she was a hero because she helped the Israelites gather the information that they needed to overtake Jericho and to begin their conquest of the land of Canaan and receive God's promise of the promised land to that nation. Last week we looked at Solomon, and we saw how even a great king who was endowed with a special gift of wisdom from God, and who was a very effective and influential king, fell under the influence of others, and because of that, comes across as a non-hero because he breaks the covenant between himself and God. He puts his relationship with God down on an equal plane with other things. And God wants to be the God in our lives, our God. He is the God. He doesn't want us to have other things up there in our lives that are equally important with him, even though he knows that there are things that are really important to us. Our relationship with him is primary because it is eternal. And so this week we're going to go on. We're going to look at a third lesson. Again, this time we're looking at a hero, kind of going back and forth, hero, not hero. And again, it's a lady that we're looking at. Ladies, this unit is really lifting you up, and that's perfectly all right because we have some wonderful ladies in the Bible who have really exhibited great faith and are really good examples for us. And this lady is a good example for us, even though she's not a Jew, she's a Gentile. And the title of the lesson is A Mother's Persistence. You know, mothers. There's just something special about mothers. They have a certain strength and internal character. Those who take on the role of mother and really perform that role effectively and completely and give themselves into that role, the raising of their children and the mentoring of their children, they are powerful people. They have marvelous influence on their family and on their world. And to talk here about a mother's persistence is to really talk about a very important thing that we need to realize, just how persistent and the writer of the students book focus on the word tenacious. In our lesson title, it says persistence, but tenacity. I remember the first time I heard that word tenacity. I may have heard it before, but the first time it really struck me and made me stop and think about it a little bit. When my wife and I were stationed in England, when we first got there, we had to live off base, and we rented a flat in a English home that was way out in the countryside. And in that home, there were apartments that the lady was renting out, that owned the home was renting out. And my wife and I were out walking one day down the little road that went in front of the house and on into the little village that was nearby. And a man that lived in the house was walking also, and he had his little dog with him, a little terrier type dog, and we were talking about his dog and what a good dog it was and that sort of thing. And he said, yes, he's very tenacious. Tenacious? What does that mean? It made me go back and look it up. Tenacious is a great word. It means you don't give up. It means you stick to your guns. It means you hang in there. You're tough. You're persistent. You keep those things that need to be done focal, and you stay focused on them until you accomplish the task. Tenacity is something that mothers have. Fathers have it too, but in a different way. Mothers need to be tenacious in a whole different way, in that sense of staying consistent and being there for the children, mainly because in a typical home, the mother tends to spend more time with the children. And so she has a lot more focus on the need to be consistent and to be that mentor of the children. That's changing quite a lot, I know. And my wife and I both worked, and I had to assume some of that mothering tenacity too, because I was spending a great deal of time with the children, just as she did. And we shared that parenting. And that's not a bad thing. But mothers traditionally really have that need to hang in there and to be consistent and to finish the task. And when they do, what a glorious thing. Uh, when a mother graduates, when her children are launched and the nest is empty, and her task in that sense of providing for them uh, in ways that they can't provide for themselves, finally drawn to an end. It never draws completely to an end, but it draws to an end in that sense of trying to be all things. So this mother in this story was tenacious. And I want to read it to you. It's from Mark, the 7th chapter, verses 24 through 30. There's a parallel passage to this in Matthew, the 15th chapter, 21 through 28. And I included that in the title for today's YouTube presentation because each of these presents a few minor things that are different in the story, but pretty much it's the same story, and it's clear that Jesus is responding to this woman in the way that he does, and exemplifies her faith and her willingness to do whatever it takes to have the needs of her daughter met. It starts off, Jesus left that place and went into the region of Tyre. Now, just prior to this in Mark, Jesus has spent a lot of time in the Jewish area, and he's been debating with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he's been talking to them about the laws and the rites of cleanliness and the rituals and all those kinds of things. And basically, he's been trying to help them understand the intent of the law, not just the letter of the law. And after doing this, certainly that was a very emotionally and uh, strenuous time of debate. The rabbis were great debaters, and I'm sure it was the kind of thing that would take a lot out of you. And he and his disciples withdrew from that area to the area of Tyre. We're told that Tyre was about 40 miles away from where his encounter with the Sadducees and Pharisees was taking place. It was a Mediterranean Sea town, and prior to that, Jesus had been on the coast of the Sea of Galilee. So a 40-mile journey. He was tired physically from that journey. He was tired emotionally. He was drained in that sense of just having to focus and maintain such mental clarity and focus as he debated. And so he withdrew to this area in Tyre. It says he didn't want anyone to know that he had entered a house, but he couldn't hide. He needed some time to himself. What a wonderful example Jesus is to us. He had a sensitivity to his own needs as well as the needs of others. And he realized that he needed to withdraw. He needed to withdraw in prayer. He needed to withdraw physically. He needed to take these times to replenish himself so that he could be at his best. But even then, and even in that situation, he couldn't hide. In fact, a woman whose young daughter was possessed by an unclean spirit heard about him right away. She came and fell at his feet. The woman was Greek, Syrophoenician by birth. She begged Jesus to throw the demon out of her daughter. He responded, The children have to be fed first. It isn't right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. But she answered, Lord, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Good answer, he said. Go on home. The demon has already left your daughter. When she returned to her house, she found the child laying on the bed and the demon gone. This is a text that is troubling to us in one way in particular. For Jesus' response to this woman does not seem like Jesus, does it? He wasn't. He didn't have empathy. He didn't uh, connect with her in that sense. Instead, uh, one of the commentators was talking about his style of interacting with her. It's like he continued that debating style that he'd been using with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And so he posed a question to her uh, that was intended to make her think and to respond. And some of the commentators think that this was kind of a test of her faith. I'm not sure about that, but I don't see God as testing our faith in that kind of way when we have a need to say, well, you do this and then I'll do that. No, I don't see God as doing that, but Jesus was uh, interacting with this lady in a very direct way. Some of the commentators try to split Jesus as Jesus fully God and Jesus fully human. And they say the fully God part of Jesus knew that how this was going to work out, and so he was a little more coarse in his language because he knew she was going to get it. On the other hand, some that were more the human side said maybe this woman was teaching Jesus a little bit about bias and about prejudice and about uh, the fact that uh, his mission was not just to the Jews, but to others. Yes, that would be a kind of human response. All of us have biases and blind sides, and we're children's creatures of our culture and of our upbringing. And yet, to put that onto Jesus, I don't think is really appropriate either, because um, Jesus had a good sense of who people were. And what we find as we go through the Gospels and we experience Jesus in our personal lives is we won't find prejudice there. We find uh, someone who is engaging and easy to be engaged, someone who delights in contact with us, and he's not doing anything to push us away. And so I think probably the best way of seeing this interaction between he and this woman is he posed to her a challenging question. What I'm doing, my ministry, is primarily for the Jews. It's not for just everyone. The woman comes back and says, You're right. It is primarily for the Jews. But there's still other aspects of your ministry. There's still left over from the abundance of your power and of your forgiveness and of your grace that can even fall as like crumbs from the table uh, to a little pet dog that was in a household or something like that. We're not talking about these wild, vicious, roaming kind of dogs, but a household pet who would be allowed to eat scraps as they fell to the floor. And maybe the children would even do this. Children still do today, and intentionally drop a few things for the dogs to eat. Uh, and so it softens this context of this challenging question a little bit. And she comes back in such a beautiful way, such an insightful way. She has such wisdom in her response because she doesn't challenge what Jesus said. In fact, she affirms it. She says, I understand. But even the dogs, and dogs was a reference to Gentiles in general, even the dogs are allowed to gather the scraps from the table. And she says, Jesus, I understand. that you are God. I understand that you have the ability to not only minister to the Jews and to respond to their needs, but you have the ability to reach out and touch all humankind, Gentile and Jew alike. This is one of the first places in the early parts of the gospel where that idea of Jesus' ministry being not just to the Jews first, but not in a way that's excluding others. Jesus doesn't say, I have come just for the Jews. He says, I have come for the Jews first. I'm beginning with those who have a history and who have a connection with God and who understand all of this is coming together now in my coming as the Messiah. But there's still room there. And that's what she saw. She saw that room. She says, yes, Lord, I know I don't have all that background. I don't have all that connection with you. And yet somehow she knew enough about Jesus that she sought him out. And her faith was so great that she tenaciously asked for healing for her daughter. She did this because of her great love for her daughter. She did this because of her love for Jesus and her realizing that he was able to respond to her daughter's needs and no one else could. What a powerful statement of faith and trust. This woman was truly a hero, a mother hero, someone who stood up and wouldn't be put down by any kind of obstacle that might keep her from seeing that the needs of her child were met. And they were met. And so we see the true character of Jesus, not someone who pushes people, but someone who draws them in, who has a true conversation, who has a conversation that draws her out and challenges her to think through this situation. And in doing so, her faith grows. What a powerful, powerful lesson. Jesus and the mother's persistence. Both of them are heroes, aren't they? Jesus is the hero because he comes to bring to us that grace and salvation and that forgiveness that God alone can bring. And this woman is a hero because she understood that fact, she claimed that fact in faith, and she hung on to it tenaciously, even though she faced great challenges in the life of her daughter and the life of her family. Oh, that we could be that same way, you and I, as we face the challenges in life. That we could be tenacious in our going to God in prayer and saying, Father, I want you to be aware of this, and I know you're aware of it, but at the same time, I beseech you, reconsider, do what you can do. And I trust you, Lord. I trust you that you're going to grant this request unless there's some way that I can't see, that it doesn't fall within the range of your greater will for everything involved. I trust you, Lord. I'm going to keep pestering you. I'm going to keep challenging you to understand what's going on here so that I can understand and see those things. The Bible tells us to come boldly before his throne of grace and present every need that we have. And so this mother came boldly before Jesus and presented the needs of her daughter. A good story. And what a heroic act of this mother as she advocated for her child. I was looking through the students' book, and I liked the closing prayer. The lesson writer always ends the student's lesson with a prayer. And I'd like to use that to close our time together today. God of healing, teach me not to give up when things get hard, when they get uncomfortable, or seemingly impossible. Remind me that you are always by my side in every situation. Let me see my faith grow as I refuse to give up. In Jesus' name we pray. God bless you. Have a wonderful